Decades had passed since the rain-soaked alley where an alien mother clutched her dying child to her chest. New Atlanta was no longer a fringe colony, but a beacon of unity. Its towers now woven with living vines, its streets filled with beings of countless shapes and voices, all speaking a shared language of respect. The Lyra Accord had spread beyond one world. It became the foundation of the Alliance of Free Systems, a pact built not on weapons, but on Caracal was older now. His silver eyes, lined with time but still bright with purpose, he no longer wore the simple tunic of his youth, but robes of green and starlight gifted by the Varelian elders. He walked slowly these days, but his presence carried weight wherever he went. Children ran to greet him. Elders bowed their heads, not in worship but in gratitude. Lisa was gone now. Her hair long turned white. Her hands no longer steady, but her spirit had never dimmed. She passed peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by Kale and the many she had helped over the years. Her last words were simple. Tell them to keep being kind. Kale honored her by teaching her words to every new generation in the learning centers. He would sit beneath the great Varelian tree in the heart of the city and speak of two mothers, one from the stars, one from earth, who chose love when fear would have been easier. But even in times of peace, shadows could gather. A new signal came, not from the dead zone, not from the Veil Nebula, but from the core worlds, the ancient heart of human expansion where old powers still clung to control. The message was brief and cold. The Accord ends now. Return to your places or be removed. Kyle felt the chill of it deep in his bones. This was not the Krell. This was something colder, more patient. The Core Council had watched the Alliance grow, and they saw not unity but threat. They feared a galaxy where humans were not masters but equals. He called a gathering in the Memorial Garden. Beings from 50 worlds came, some in ships, some through portals, some walking for weeks just to hear him speak. They want to divide us. He said, his voice quiet but clear. They say we are too different to share a future. A young human girl raised her hand. But we eat the same food, drink the same water, breathe the same air. A Varelian elder nodded, and our children dream the same dreams. Then we do not obey. Kyle said, we do not fight. We show them what they refuse to see. So the Alliance did not raise weapons. They raised gardens. They sent ships not with soldiers but with seeds, healers, and teachers. They traveled to the core worlds not to conquer but to offer. At first the gates were closed. Patrols turned them away, but the Alliance did not leave. They camped outside the great cities of Earth, Mars, and Titan. Not in anger but in patience, they planted food, shared medicine, sang songs in many tongues on Earth in the shadow of the old United Nations spire. A small boy fell ill with a fever. No clinic would treat off-worlders, but a Varelian healer stepped forward using herbs from New Atlanta. She saved the child. The boy's mother wept and hugged her tight. On Mars, a dust storm trapped a human family in a broken rover. A team of insectoid engineers from the outer rim dug them out and repaired their vehicle without asking for thanks. And Titan, a human elder, sat alone on a bench grieving his lost wife. A young alien girl sat beside him and simply held his hand until the sun rose. Slowly the walls began to crack. Then came the day the Core Council summoned Kyle to stand before them in the grand chamber beneath Earth's sky dome. They expected defiance. They expected rage. Instead, Kale came alone, wearing simple robes. No guards, no weapons. He carried only a small pot with a single sprout. You defy our order. The head counselor said, his voice sharp. Answer it with life. Kale said, placing the pot on the table. This is a Varelian star bloom. It only grows where trust has taken root. It has never bloomed on Earth. Before the counselor stared silent. Why should we trust you? The counselor asked. Because my mother trusted a stranger in the rain, and that stranger saved my life. Kale said, because Lisa trusted me when I had nothing, and that trust built a world you now fear. He looked around the room, not with accusation but with sorrow. You are not evil, you are afraid, and fear makes even wise people small. Then he turned to leave. But the youngest counselor, a woman named Mara, stood. Wait. She said, what if we try? The others protested. But Mara stepped forward and touched the sprout in the potlet. See if it grows. That single act opened the door. Over the next year, Mara worked quietly with Kale, building bridges between the Core and the Alliance. She brought human children to learn in New Atlanta's schools. She sent Earth doctors to heal in the outer rim. She even planted a star bloom in her own garden. It bloomed on the first anniversary of Lisa's passing, its petals glowing soft gold in the night. The core council did not dissolve overnight, but change had taken root, like the vines on New Atlanta's towers. Slow, quiet, unstoppable, Cale returned home one last time. The journey had tired him more than he let on. He walked through the greenhouse, now vast, enough to feed 1,000 worlds, and stopped before the memorial stone where his mother's name was carved. "I kept my promise, Mama," he whispered. That night he sat beneath the great tree, the same spot where he once told Lisa's stories to wide-eyed children. Now those children were parents themselves, and they brought their own little ones to listen. An old man with silver eyes and gentle hands told them of a rainy night long ago, when kindness changed everything, and as the twin suns set and the stars blinked awake, a soft wind moved through the leaves. Not a song this time, but a sigh of peace, full and complete. In the years that followed, the star bloom spread across the galaxy, not as a plant, but as a symbol, wherever beings chose to trust. Rather than fear, to give; rather than take, to see each other not as strange, but as family. And though Cale's body returned to the earth, his spirit lived on in every shared meal, every healed wound, every child who reached across difference with an open hand. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of moments like that first rainy night in Sector 7. Small, quiet moments where one person chose to care, and in doing so, lit a flame that would never go out. And if you listen closely on a still night when the wind is just right, you might hear it, not a song, not a word, but a feeling, warm and steady, like a mother's arms, like a friend's promise, like home. And that was enough. Months passed, and life in New Atlanta settled into a quiet rhythm for Lyra and Cale. The greenhouse became her second home, rows of green plants stretching under artificial suns, the air thick with the scent of soil and growth. She worked alongside humans and a few other off-worlders, planting, tending, harvesting. Her hands remembered the old ways of Virelia and adapted them to this strange earth. Her knowledge saved a failing crop of nutrient tubers and earned her respect even from those who once eyed her with suspicion. Cale thrived in the learning center, his silver eyes wide with wonder as he learned human words, drew pictures of stars, and made friends with children of all kinds. Some with scales, some with fur, some with smooth, brown skin like Lisa. He came home each day chattering in a mix of standard tongue and soft Virelian sounds. Lyra would listen with a smile, her heart full in a way she had not known since before the Great Silence. Lisa remained a steady presence, visiting every few days, sometimes bringing fresh fruit, sometimes just sitting with Lyra on the small balcony, sharing silence that needed no words. They had become more than friends. They were family bound not by blood but by choice and kindness, but peace on the edge of human space was never permanent. One morning, as Lyra walked to the greenhouse with Cale holding her hand, a loud siren split the air. It was not the usual alarm for storms or power surges. This was deeper, longer, more urgent. People stopped in the streets, faces turning upward toward the sky. Lyra felt a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. She knew that sound from old war broadcasts. It was a fleet alert above the city. The sky darkened, not from clouds, but from ships, massive and jagged, their hulls black as void. They hung in silence, blocking the light of the twin suns. Panic spread through the streets. People ran shouting for shelters. Enforcers tried to direct crowds, but fear moved faster than orders. Lisa appeared out of the chaos, breathless, her face pale. She grabbed Lyra's arm. Cale clung to his mother's leg. "They're here," she said, voice tight. "It's the Krell." Lyra's blood ran cold. The Krell were not just raiders, they were destroyers. They had wiped out entire systems, leaving only ash and silence. They were the reason the Great Silence had spread like a plague across the Outer Rim. And now they had come to New Atlanta. The colony defenses fired, but the blasts vanished against the Krell shields like sparks against stone. Then the bombardment began, not on the military zones but on the city itself. Buildings crumbled, fire bloomed in the streets. Screams filled the air. Lisa pulled Lyra toward a nearby shelter entrance, but Cale stumbled, crying in fear. Lyra scooped him up and ran the ground shaking beneath her feet. A blast struck a tower nearby, sending debris raining down. Lisa shoved them both into a doorway just as a chunk of metal crashed where they had stood. "We can't stay here, Lisa," panted. The main shelters will be overrun. We need to get to the old tunnels beneath the greenhouse. Lyra nodded, clutching Kale tight. They moved through smoke and ruin the city. She had begun to call home now. Burning around them, they reached the greenhouse, its dome cracked but still standing. Lisa led them to a hidden hatch behind a storage shed. It opened with a rusted groan revealing dark stairs. Down here, Lisa urged. They descended into cool, damp darkness. The tunnel smelled of earth and old machinery. Lisa pulled a glow stick from her pocket and cracked it, casting a soft green light. They walked for what felt like hours, the sounds of war fading above. Finally, they reached a wider chamber with crates of emergency supplies and a small power unit. Lisa set it up quickly. A faint hum filled the space and a single bulb flickered to life. We'll be safe here for now, she said. Checking the air filters, this place was built during the first border wars. Its shielded Kale curled up on a blanket. Exhausted, Lyra sat beside him, her mind racing. The Krell did not take prisoners, they erased everything. Why are they here? Lyra whispered. Lisa shook her head. Maybe they tracked refugee signals. Maybe they just want more ground to burn. Lyra looked at Kale, then at Lisa. A decision forming in her heart. She knew something the humans did not. On Varelia. We had stories of the Krell. She said they hunt not just for land but for life force. They feed on strong minds. They seek out places with many children, because young minds shine brighter. Lisa's eyes widened. Then they'll come for the shelters, they'll drain them dryly. Ren nodded, unless someone stops them. How? Lisa asked softly. Lyra stood slowly, her voice steady. I am Varelian. Our minds are different. We can shield others if we stand together at the right place at the right time. You'd have to be above ground. Lisa said, horrified. Yes. Lyra said. And I would not survive. No, Lisa grabbed her arm. Tears in her eyes. There has to be another way. There isn't, Lyra said gently. I have nothing left to lose, but I have everything to protect. Kale stirred awake and reached for her. Mama Lyra knelt and held him close, whispering old lullabies in Varelian. Then she turned to Lisa. Promise me you'll keep him safe. Lisa swallowed hard and nodded. I promise. They waited until night. The bombardment had stopped. The silence more terrifying than the noise. Lyra kissed Kale's forehead and handed him to Lisa. Then she climbed the stairs alone. Above the city was a graveyard. Of steel and flame, the Krell ships hovered low, their dark forms pulsing with eerie light. Lyra walked toward the center of the ruined plaza, her steps calm, her mind clear. She closed her eyes and reached deep into the old ways of her people, drawing on the last spark of her Varelian spirits. He began to sing. It was not a song of words, but of thought, of memory, of love. It rose from her like a wave, pure and bright, a shield of light. Only minds could see. The Krell sensed it immediately. Their ships turned toward her, beams of dark energy lancing out. But her song held, bending the beams away from the shelters below. In the tunnels, Lisa held Kyle close. The boy whimpered but did not cry. He seemed to understand. Above, Lyra glowed brighter. Her body, trembling with effort, she thought of Varelia, of her mate, of Kale's laughter, of Lisa's kindness. She poured it all into the song until it filled the sky. The Krell fired again, and this time the beam struck truly. Ra fell to her knees, but her song did not stop. It grew stronger, echoing through the minds of every child in the shelters, every human, every alien. It wrapped around them like armor. Then, with a final pulse of light, she vanished. The Krell ships shuddered as if struck by an unseen force. Then they turned and fled, vanishing into the stars as quickly as they came. Dawn broke over New Atlanta, smoke still rising, but the city lived in the tunnel. Lisa carried Kale up the stairs into the light. People were emerging from shelters, dazed, but alive. They looked at the sky, then at the empty plaza where Lyra had stood. Lisa walked to the center and knelt. She placed Kale's small hand on the scorched earth. She saved us, Lisa whispered. Kale looked up at the sky, his silver eyes filled with tears but also with understanding. Weeks later, the colony began to rebuild. The greenhouse was repaired and expanded in Lyra's honor. A small memorial stone placed at its heart with Varelian script that read, She sang, so we could live. Kyle stayed. With Lisa, they made a new home together, filled with stories of a mother who gave everything so her child could have a future. And sometimes on quiet nights when the twin suns set and the stars came out, Lisa and Cale would sit on the balcony and listen to the wind. It sounded like a song, soft, gentle, and full of love. Years passed and New Atlanta rose again, stronger and greener than before. The scars of the Krell attack remained, but so did the memory of the alien mother who gave her life to save them all. Cale was no longer a small child clinging to his mother's leg. He was 12 now, tall for his age, with silver eyes that held both sorrow and strength. He wore a simple tunic with a green leaf stitched over his heart, a symbol of the greenhouse project that now bore his mother's name. He lived with Lisa in the same apartment above the repair shop, though it had changed over time, filled with books, plants, and drawings of stars. Cale never forgot his mother's sacrifice, but he did not let it weigh him down. Instead, he carried it like a quiet flame, guiding his steps each day. He walked to the Lyra Memorial Greenhouse, where he worked alongside botanists from a dozen worlds, learning not just how to grow food but how to heal the land itself. Lisa had become a community liaison, helping displaced beings find shelter, work, and hope. She often said that Lyra's kindness had lit a spark in her, and now she tried to pass that light to others. One morning, as Cale tended to a new strain of Virelian moonblossom, a plant his mother once described in stories, a strange signal pulsed through the colony's comms network. It was not a broadcast, not a warning, just a single repeating tone, soft and rhythmic like a heartbeat. People ignored it at first, but Kyle felt something stir in his chest, a memory not his own but deep in his blood. He went to Lisa, who was reviewing aid requests at the community center. "Did you hear it?" he asked. "Hear what?" "That sound." The Tona Lisa frowned. "I didn't notice anything." Cale closed his eyes and listened again. The tone was still there, faint but steady, coming from deep space. He knew because his mother's people could sense frequencies beyond human range. "It's a call," he said. "A call from who? I don't know. But it feels familiar." That night Cale climbed to the colony's observation deck high above the city. The stars stretched endlessly and the tone grew clearer in his mind. He sat on the edge of the platform, letting it wash over him. Then, without warning, a shape appeared in the sky. Not a ship, not a star, but a shimmer like heat haze slowly forming into a symbol. A spiral with 3 rings. The mark of Virelia. His breath caught his heart. Raced. He ran back to Lisa and dragged her to the deck. But by the time they returned, the symbol was gone. It was real, he insisted. Lisa believed him, she always did. But she also knew the risks. Rumors of Virelian survivors had surfaced before, and each time they led to dead ends or worse, Krell traps. Still, she helped Cale petition the Colony Council for a listening post, a small array of sensors tuned to Virelian frequencies. Most members laughed, but Helen Carter, now senior counselor, spoke up. "The boy's mother saved this world. She said if he hears something, we should listen." So they built it, a modest dish on the edge of the greenhouse powered by solar cells, and hope. For weeks nothing happened. Then one evening, as Kyle watered the night blooms, the dish emitted a soft chime. He rushed to the console and saw it, a message encoded in Old Virelian script. His hands trembled as he decoded it. "Survivors found refuge in the Veil Nebula. Come if you hear this." His eyes filled with tears. He ran to Lisa, who was cooking dinner. "They're alive," he said, breathless. "There are others." Lisa set down her spoon and looked at him. "You want to go have to." She didn't argue. She knew this was part of his story, part of his healing. She went to Helen, who arranged passage on a supply freighter heading toward the outer rim. The ship was old but reliable. Its captain, a grizzled human named Doris, who had lost her own family in the border wars and carried a soft spot for lost children. 3 weeks later, Cale stood on the freighter's deck, watching New Atlanta shrink behind him. Lisa had hugged him tight before he left and whispered, "Your mother would be proud." The journey was long and quiet. The Veil Nebula lay beyond known space, a swirling cloud of gas and dust where sensors failed and navigation relied on instinct and star charts older than the colony itself. Doris let Cale help with the scans, and he used his Virelian senses to guide them through safe paths. On the 28th day, they saw it, a glimmer in the mist. Not a ship, but a cluster of structures built into the hollows of a dead asteroid. Green lights pulsed softly along its surface, the same green as Virelian life signs. Doris slowed the ship and hailed them in broken standard tongue. "This is Freighter Wanderer." "We come in peace," a voice answered, smooth and melodic. speaking Varelian. Kale's heart leapt. He responded in his native tongue. I am Kale, son of Lyra Silence. Then a hatch opened and a figure emerged, tall, slender, with skin like liquid silver and eyes that glowed faintly. They wore robes woven with living vines. You carry. Her light, the figure said. Kale nodded. Come, child, the last of your line is welcome home. He stepped onto the asteroid and felt something he had not felt since he was a baby, a sense of belonging. The air smelled of Varelian blossoms. The walls hummed with gentle energy, and children ran through the corridors, their laughter echoing like wind chimes. The elder introduced herself as Maela. She had been Lyra's teacher long ago, and one of the few who escaped the great silence by hiding in the nebulas. Blind spots. We thought we were alone, she said, until your mother's final song reached us across the void. It told us where to look for survivors. Kyle spent days learning from Maela, hearing stories of his mother's childhood, her courage, her dreams. He walked through gardens of glowing flora and swam in pools that sang when touched. He even met other young Varelians who had been born in exile. But something still pulled at him one evening. He stood at the edge of the asteroid looking out at the stars toward where New Atlanta lay. You miss them? Maela said, appearing beside him. Yes, he said, they saved me too. Maela smiled. Then perhaps it is time we reach out, not just to survive but to connect, with help from Doris and the Colony Council. A message was sent, not just a signal but an invitation, a proposal to share knowledge between Varelian survivors and human worlds to build something new from the ashes of the old months. Later, a small delegation of Varelians, including Kale, traveled. Back to New Atlanta, they brought seeds of healing plants, songs of peace, and open hands. Lysa met Kale at the landing pad, tears in her eyes. They embraced like family because they were. The greenhouse expanded once more, this time with Varelian trees that bloomed year-round, their petals releasing calm into the air. The learning center added lessons in Varelian history and thought, and Kale stood before crowds, not as a refugee but as a bridge between worlds. She never forgot the alley where his mother wept, or the kindness that changed everything. He told the story, often not for glory, but to remind others that even in the darkest hour, one act of compassion could ripple across stars. And sometimes when the twin suns set and the wind blew through the leaves of the memorial garden, people swore they could hear a song, soft, gentle, and full of love, not gone, just waiting to be remembered. Time flowed like a quiet river through New Atlanta, the scars of war softened by green vines and shared stories. Kale was now a young man, his silver eyes calm, his voice steady. He walked the greenhouse paths not as a visitor but as a guardian. The Varelian trees towered above him, their leaves shimmering with soft light, their roots intertwined with human crops in a living symbol of unity. The bond between the Varelian enclave in the Vale Nebula and the human colony had grown strong over the years. Trade flourished. Knowledge was exchanged, and children from both worlds learned each other's songs. Lisa remained at the heart of it all. Her small apartment, now a gathering place for diplomats, healers, and dreamers. She had gray in her hair now, but her kindness burned as bright as ever. At peace, like all living things, needed tending. One morning, a distress call crackled through the colony's comms. Not from a ship, not from a known world, but from the dead zone, a region of space. Where signals vanished and ships never returned, the voice was broken. Frantic, speaking in a mix of standard tongue and old Varelian. They're taking the children. Please, someone here. Uskael recognized the dialect. It was from the Outer Rim colonies, small settlements of mixed species that had formed after the Krell Wars. He turned to Lisa, who stood beside him in the greenhouse control room. We have to go, she said before he could speak. But it's the dead zone. I can't ask you to risk that. You're not asking, she said. I'm choosing. They prepared quickly, using a new vessel gifted by the Varelian elders. The Sky Whisper, sleek and silent, powered by living crystal that responded to thought, not buttons. Doris, now retired but still sharp, agreed to pilot it, her hands steady on the controls as they left orbit. The journey into the dead zone was like sailing through fog. Even the stars seemed dimmed. Sensors flickered and comms grew weak, but Kyle closed his eyes and reached out with his Varelian, senses feeling for life like ripples in dark water. There, he said, pointing to a patch of empty space. Doris adjusted course, and the ship glided forward. Suddenly, a hidden structure appeared, cloaked in shadow. A massive station shaped like a claw, its surface scarred with old battle marks. "That's not human," Cadel whispered. "No," Doris said grimly, "that's Krell." But the Krell were gone, destroyed or scattered after Lyra's sacrifice. Unless they came back. The distress call had stopped. But Kale felt something. Deeper. A pulse of fear, thin and desperate like a thread about to snap. He guided the Sky Whisper to a hidden docking bay on the station's underbelly. The airlock hissed open, revealing dark corridors lit by flickering red lights. They moved quietly. Lisa carried a medkit. Doris a pulse rifle, and Kale only his hands and his heart. Deep inside they found them children, dozens of them from many species huddled in cells, their eyes wide with terror. Some were human, some Virelian, some from worlds. Kale had never seen. Their wrists bore faint marks where devices had been attached. The Krell were not gone. They had changed. They no longer burned worlds. They harvested minds. Young minds, still bright and unbroken. They used machines to drain memories, emotions, even dreams, storing them in glowing orbs that lined the walls of a central chamber. "We have to free them," Lisa said, her voice tight with anger. "But the Krell are here somewhere," Kale warned. "Then we move fast." They worked in silence, Lisa picking locks with tools from her kit. Doris standing guard at each turn, Kale soothing the children with soft Virelian hums that calmed their panic. One small boy clung to his leg, his eyes the same silver as Kale's. "Are you like Mama?" he whispered. Kale knelt and touched the boy's forehead gently. "Yes, little one, I am." They freed all the children, 23 in total, and led them back through the maze of corridors. But as they reached the docking bay, alarms blared, red lights flashed, and a figure emerged from the shadows, tall, armored, its face hidden behind a smooth black mask. "You carry her echo." The figure hissed, its voice like grinding stone. Kale stepped forward. "Who are you?" "I am the last watcher, the one who remained when the others fled. After your mother's song broke our fleet, I studied her. I learned from her weakness. Weakness. Kale said she saved thousands. She died." The watcher snapped. "And death is the final weakness. Then I will not die today," Kale said. The watcher lunged, but Kale did not fight. He closed his eyes and sang, not a shield this time, but a memory. He sang of Lyra's love, her lullabies, her final stand. The song poured from him, not as light but as truth, and the children joined in their voices, small but strong. Watcher staggered as if struck. The mask cracked, revealing a face twisted by centuries of hunger. But also something else, regret. "I only wanted to understand why she chose to fade rather than rule." "Because love is not power." Kyle said, "It is gift." The watcher fell to its knees. The machines in the station powered down, the orbs dimmed and shattered, releasing the stolen dreams back into the air like fireflies. Doris ushered the children onto the Sky Whisper as the station groaned around them. Its systems failing without the Krell's will to hold it together. "Come on, Kyle," Lisa called. He looked at the watcher still kneeling. "Broken but alive, we leave him." Kyle said he has seen enough. They escaped just as the station collapsed into itself, vanishing into the dead zone silence back on New Atlanta. The children were reunited with families or given new homes. The colony held a ceremony, not of victory, but of healing. Kale stood before the crowd, not as a hero, but as a son, remembering that night. He sat with Lisa on the old balcony, the stars bright above. "Do you think he'll change?" Kale asked, the watcher. Yes, Lisa said, "People can change when someone shows them another way. Your mother showed you yours. You showed him." His Kyle smiled softly, then looked toward the Veil Nebula where Mayella and the others waited. He knew his path now. He would travel between worlds, not to fight but to listen, to heal, to connect. Years later, when New Atlanta became the first united system of human and alien cooperation, they named its charter the Lyra Accord, and at its heart was a simple truth. Kindness is the strongest force in the universe, and in quiet moments when the wind blew through the memorial garden, people still heard a song, soft, gentle, and full of love. Not gone, just living in those who chose to carry it forward. An alien mother had nothing left until a human's kindness saved her child. The rain fell hard on the cracked streets of New Atlanta Sector 7, a sprawling human colony world far from Earth. The sky glowed orange from the twin suns setting behind. The jagged skyline of rusted towers and flickering neon signs in a narrow alley behind a broken food stall. A small, trembling figure huddled beneath a torn thermal blanket. Her name was Lyra. She was not human. Her skin shimmered faintly like moonlit. Water, her eyes large and silver, reflected the dim light with a deep sorrow that no words could ease. She clutched a bundle to her chest, her child only 3 cycles old, barely able to speak, yet already marked by hunger and fear. Lyra had come from the star system of Aurelia, a peaceful world destroyed in the great silence, a mysterious wave of energy that erased entire civilizations. Without warning, she had escaped on a damaged scout ship with her mate and child. But their vessel was struck by debris near the outer rim. Her mate died shielding them with his body. She landed on this human world with nothing but the clothes on her back and a fading hope. For weeks she wandered the streets begging for scraps, avoiding patrols who saw her. Kind as threats or curiosities, humans had fought many wars with alien species in the past. Trust was rare and kindness rarer still. Lyra spoke only broken standard tongue learned from old broadcasts. She could not find work. No one would hire an alien, especially one with a child and no papers. She sold the last of her ship's power cells for a loaf of synth bread and a bottle of clean water. But that was days ago now. Her child Kale grew weaker, his breathing shallow, his small body burning. With fever, she had tried everything. She went to the med clinic, but they turned her away without credits. She approached a charity center, but the line was too long, and by the time she reached the door, they had run out of aid. She sat in the alley, tears mixing with the rain, her mind circling the same dark thought. She could not lose him too. Not after everything. Then she heard footsteps, soft but steady. Not the heavy boots of enforcers, but lighter, slower. She looked up through the rain and saw a young woman standing at the mouth of the alley. The woman wore a faded blue jacket and carried a small medical pack. She had short brown hair and kind eyes that held no fear. Only concern. Hey, the woman said gently. You okay? Lyra flinched. She did not understand all the words, but the tone was warm. She shook her head slowly, pointing to Kale in her arms. The woman stepped closer without hesitation. She knelt in the wet grime and opened her pack. My name's Lisa, she said. I work at the clinic. Down the block. Saw you sitting here earlier. Didn't look rightly. Or made a soft sound like wind through glass trying to speak. But her voice cracked. Lisa did not wait for words. She reached out slowly, showing her empty hands, then gently touched Kale's forehead. Her expression changed. He's burning up, she whispered. We need to get him inside now. Lyra hesitated, fear gripping her. But something in Lisa's eyes told her this was not a trap. She nodded, and with Lisa's help, she rose to her, feet, legs shaking from exhaustion. They walked slowly through the rain, Lisa supporting her arm, guiding her to a small apartment above a repair shop. Not the clinic, but a private space, warm and dry with soft light and shelves full of books and plants. Lisa laid Kale on a narrow bed and pulled out a scanner from her pack. It beeped softly as she ran it over his small form. Then she opened a drawer and took out medicine and a hydration patch. He's dehydrated and running a high fever, probably from exposure and lack of nutrients, Lisa said as she worked. She glanced at Lyra. You've been on your own a while, haven't you? Lyra nodded, tears falling again. She whispered in broken words. My ship gone. My mate gone. No home. No. Help. Lisa paused, then sat beside her on the edge of the bed. She didn't touch her, but her presence was steady. You're safe here for now, she said. I can't fix everything, but I can help tonight. For the next few hours, Lisa worked quietly, giving Kale fluids, medicine, and warmth. She wrapped him in soft blankets and monitored his breathing. Lyra watched every move, her heart pounding. Not with fear now, but with something new. Fragile and bright hope. As the night deepened and Kale's breathing grew steadier, Lisa made tea and offered Lyra a bowl of soup, simple vegetable broth with bits of protein. It was the first real food Lyra had tasted in weeks. She ate slowly, savoring each spoonful. Why you help me? Lyra asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Lisa looked at her for a long moment, then smiled softly. Because no one should have to watch their child suffer alone. Lyra did not understand all the words, but she understood the meaning. She reached out and touched Lisa's hand lightly, a gesture of thanks from her people. Lisa did not pull away. In the days that followed, Lisa did not send Lyra away. She let them stay in the spare room. She shared her food, her space, her time. She taught Lyra simple human phrases, and listened as Lyra shared stories of Varelia, of its oceans that sang and trees that glowed at night. She even helped Lyra file for temporary asylum. Though the process was slow and full of red tape, Cale grew stronger each day. His silver eyes bright again, his laughter soft like chimes he took to following Lisa around the apartment, mimicking her words and gestures. Lyra watched them together and felt a warmth she had not known since leaving her world one evening, as the twin suns set painting the sky in gold and violet. Lisa sat with Lyra on the small balcony overlooking the city. You know, Lisa said you don't have to go back to the streets. There's a program for displaced aliens. It's not perfect, but it's a start. And you've got skills, right? You said you were a botanist on. Varelia. Lyra nodded. Yes, I grew healing plants. Well, the colony's greenhouse project is looking for people with that kind of knowledge, Lisa said. Maybe I can put in a word. Lyra looked at her, then at Cale, playing quietly inside with a toy Lisa had. Made from scrap parts for the first time in a long time, she felt something like peace. But peace did not last. 3 days later, 2 enforcers came to the door. They wore black uniforms and carried stun batons, their faces hard behind clear visors. Alien. Registration violation, one said flatly. You're harboring an unregistered off-worlder hand. Her over Lisa stood in the doorway, blocking their view inside. She kept her voice calm but firm. She's applying for asylum. Her papers are in process. You know the law. You can't just take her. The enforcer stepped forward. You don't get to decide that. Human, step aside, Lyra heard the commotion from inside. She held Cale close, her heart racing. She knew what happened to unregistered aliens. They were sent to detention camps. Some never came back. Before the enforcer could push past Lisa, a voice rang out from the stairwell. Hold it right there. An older woman appeared behind the enforcer's gray hair, tied back, sharp eyes fixed on them. She wore a badge that read Colony Oversight Council member Helen Carter. These 2 filed a complaint against you boys for harassing civilians again, Helen said, stepping forward. She looked at Lisa and gave a small nod, then turned to Lyra and Cale, her expression softening. Slightly, the enforcers stiffened. One muttered, Ma'am, we're just doing our job. Your job doesn't include terrorizing refugees, Helen snapped. Now back off, or I'll have your badges before sunrise. The enforcers exchanged glances, then stepped back. Grumbling as they turned and left, Helen entered the apartment and closed the door behind her. You okay? Lisa asked. Helen nodded, then looked at Lyra. You're the Varelian botanist, right? Lisa told me about you. We've been looking for someone with your expertise. The greenhouse project is short-staffed and your kind know things about plant life we've never seen. Lyra stood slowly, still holding Cale. I want to help, she said softly. I want to work. I want to stay. Helen smiled. Then you're in. Luck, because we want you to. In the weeks that followed, Lyra began working at the colony greenhouse. Her knowledge of alien flora helped revive failing crops and even created new hybrid plants that thrived in the harsh soil of New Atlanta. She was given proper housing papers and a small stipend. Cale started attending a mixed-species learning center, where human and alien children played and learned together. Lisa visited, often bringing sweets and books. She and Lyra became close friends, sharing stories over tea and watching Cale grow taller and stronger. One evening, as they sat on the balcony again watching the stars, Lyra turned to Lisa. You saved us, she said simply. Lisa shook her head. No, you saved yourselves. You just needed someone to believe in you. Lyra looked up at the sky where distant stars shimmered like memories of home, then down at Cale sleeping peacefully inside. She had lost everything once, but now she had a new beginning. Not because she was strong alone, but because someone chose to be kind, and in that moment, under the twin suns of a human world, an alien mother knew she was no longer alone. She had found a home not in a place, but in the heart of a stranger who became family.